let me just introduce myself a little bit more. I'm Jen. I am a professional content writer, and and I because I have not yet published a book, amateur fiction writer. I've been writing for since I was 4, and so now I do that professionally, and I also do it as a hobby. As writing's really big for me, so that's why I'm doing these writing sessions to kind of motivate myself and others to get some more words on the page, get some creativity going, that sort of thing. I guess it would help if I kind of laid out a little bit of the magical world. This novel is about a knitting group. It's about these six members of this knitting group, and they live in a magical fantasy world where there are 4 types of beings. There's humans, which is self-explanatory, sorcerers, who are the most able to control and use magic like as they wish. The Neminoths, who have very specific magical skills and are humanoid but not quite human. And they have music. They have magic. So that, and then the 4th one is shapeshifters. And shapeshifters are they vary very widely in what they can do, like the different animals that they can be, as well as whether they can shift at will, whether they can shift their entire body or just parts of it, and that sort of thing. And that's actually kind of important to the story. So this story is going to be a series of short stories that will be backstory for my 2nd novel. So for the last couple of weeks, I have been working on my 2nd novel, like preparing to write it. And so I've been messing with character and setting and kind of trying to wrap my head around what the plot points are going to be before I dive into writing the actual draft. Now, typically, I am not this much of a planner. My first novel was really haphazard. It just came together in bits and pieces over the course of years. The first draft took like 5 years. The second draft took an additional 2 years, or maybe 3. It's been a long time in the works, and while that worked, and I think what I ended up with is pretty good. Like for a second draft, it's really good, if I do say so myself. But I don't want to really do that again. I don't want it to take years. I want to write something in like maybe a year, or ideally less than that. But I'm trying this new method of planning things out. Like I have a whole notebook that it's a 3-subject college ruled spiral bound notebook that has, the first section is dedicated to setting, the second to plot, or second to character, and the third to plot. And each of these sections are, like, I've kind of filled them out almost in a bullet journal tracker style, but it's kind of just making little worksheets for myself of what I want to put where, and like the different locations that I need to know what they look like and how they're laid out, the people, like what they look like, what their home life was like, all this background stuff. And then the plot section will have like a timeline and different details for scenes that need to be written. And so I've got all of that laid out, and so now I'm just filling it in. And one of the things that I came across while doing that was this idea to write these short backstories for my characters, things that won't be necessary to have read to get the novel, to read the novel, to understand the novel. Really want to figure out who these characters are and what made them who they are, so that I can more fully develop the plot points that I've kind of already got going for the second novel, and I think the short stories are just going to help me really solidify that. But it'll be something that I can post to my blog, minutesnotseconds.home.blog, as well as something that I could record for additional audiobooks for my Stories and Stockinette Stitches YouTube channel, which, because of the way Google works, the channel name is actually j.e.novotny, which is my pen name. So that's what I'm working on. And today I was working on broadening out some of the ideas for, it's one of the primary characters. Her name is Heather, and she is a shapeshifter, unable to shift at will. She's actually going to university to learn self-transformation so that she can hopefully transform her ears, which she has fox ears, and she can change her other features later on, like in the actual novel, but she can't change the ears. They're there. And that's kind of the focus of the short story, is her getting the fox ears and what that kind of means for her life, because it's not a good thing. And so this story, her backstory is kind of about her developing those ears and what it meant for her, which basically it meant ostracism, because foxes they're not considered a good animal to transform into. Like, people with fox traits are considered to be sneaky and untrustworthy, and they are just, they're not really accepted very well. And then there's the added issue with this character. Her name is Heather. There's an added issue with Heather. Her parents transform into a fox, and shifter identities are considered to be kind of hereditary. So if no one in your family has ever shifted into that animal, it kind of brings into question your parentage. And so she's kind of dealing with that, and dealing with being ostracized by her classmates throughout school, and just she doesn't have a great time growing up, and she's gonna have some stuff to struggle with in the novel. Is kind of with that perpetual loneliness and not feeling connected to her identity. She is one of my favorite characters. She's very soft spoken. She's very sweet. She's very quiet. She's very, very pale with dark freckles, like all over. And she has curly red hair to go with her bright red fox ears. And she's pretty tiny. She's a very small girl. And I kind of picture her as being a little androgynous. Like, she's not super girly, but she's not really masculine either. She falls somewhere kind of in between. Her curls, like as in the novel, when she gets older, she keeps them short. I think she's going to be a good, like, bonding cement for the other characters. Like, she's going to be that character that is kind of helps to smooth over problems and help people come to understand each other a little better. For the Words is a really cool writing game. Basically, you fight monsters. Each monster has a different word count requirement and a different time limit. And so you have to write that set number of words in the required amount of time, and that's how you beat the monster. And when you beat them, you get different resources, and the resources are used for quest lines. They get you different items, and you're like able to build like a wardrobe for your character. And now they've added a house function to where you have like a little house setting. Very bare right now. I don't have very much stuff. I mostly have things from the Valentine's Day event, but it's nice. I like it. It's a fun thing to build, and so it motivates me to write more, which is the total goal of it, is getting more words on the page. And But stories and stockinette stitches. Stockinette stitches it's a type of stitch in knitting. It's most knitwear that you see. Like if you look at it, it has these little V's, and that is stockinette stitch. It's the most common knitting stitch there is. It's pretty recognizable. So stories and stockinette stitches combines my love of knitting and my love of writing. And the Nitty Gritty group is being imagined as a novel that has accompanying knitting patterns with it. So it'll be something that could be read alone, like even if you're not a knitter, because it's not all about knitting. It's about this group. They're a knitting group, but they also inhabit this magical fantasy world where there are different types of beings, and it's more about the characters than the knitting itself. And really having the patterns added to it is more just, for me, it's just that extra little thing that I want to do, because I do love designing. Oh my goodness, I love designing my own knitwear. I don't know, it's something I've always done. So if I started knitting when I was like 13, I didn't really have access to knitting patterns. This was before the internet, where there's all kind, like now you can find anything that you want either for free or for, less than $10. But back when I started knitting as a teen, I didn't have all of that. Like I learned how to knit from an encyclopedia, and with a couple of number 2 pencils and some twine, because my mother insisted that I had to prove I was serious about knitting before she would let me actually buy yarn and needles and the stuff that you need to knit. And so I did, and I started knitting, and I didn't have access to patterns really, so I was just kind of making it up as I went along, and that's just how I've always knit. It's not so different from how I write or have written previously. I hope that you will join me again for a future writing. 9 o'clock on next Friday. I will definitely be back. I may stream before then, but I will most definitely be around on Friday for a writing session if anybody wants to join me for that.